different parts. That the first part, verses 1 through 5, kind of gives account of Job's outward appearance and his circumstances. Then 6 through 12 gives account of the circumstances of Job being tried by the Lord, and allowing the devil to try him. So when we look at them first 5 verses, a couple of things I want to point out tonight. A lot of the times when we look at people, we look at their outward appearance. We look at what they have. We look at the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they walk, and we automatically draw conclusions about them. I believe now with a lot of we've known this for the longest. People look at us because of the color of our skin and automatically think we are a threat. They think that we're up to no good. They think that we're out to hurt them. And it's because of our outward appearance. That's all they see. They don't know us itself. But what the Lord wanted to do and what the writer wanted to do in here is show Job was a man of stature. He had a lot of stuff. He had a lot of possessions. But the one thing that the Lord doesn't worry about what you have physically. He looks at the inner being of the person. And a lot of the time, especially in today, we need to look at a person's inner self. We need to look at the stuff they do. We need to look at the stuff they say, how they say it, and how they act around people. You can really tell a lot just by sitting back, listening to what people say. You can sit back and kind of tell what they're about by listening to what they say. Have you ever sat down and had a conversation with someone or you sit back and start listening and they'll start talking maybe about politics or sports or something like that, especially here lately with the Colin Kaepernick kneeling, with the election of President Trump, with the running of Hillary Clinton for president. When you sit down and listen to them conversations, you could tell how a person really feels because it'll slip up. Some things they say will slip out. And you would have been thinking for the longest that this person was upright. You've been thinking for the longest this person didn't have no flaws, and up and behold, they open up their mouth and now you see that is not the case. So what we have to look at and what we have to realize, we don't need to judge a book by its cover. When we look at these first 5 verses, it does tell us about Job's outward appearance. But in that first verse, if you notice, God said that the man was blameless and upright, one who feared and turned away from evil. Then they started telling the other stuff he had. When people talk about you, when they mention you or see you, they should see the Lord first. They should see your works first. They should be able to see what you have done. Then they could see the fruits of your labor. And that's that's why in my mind it is worded like it is worded tonight. People are looking at the fruits of his labor, but because he was blameless and because he feared the Lord gave him the 10 children. The Lord blessed him with the cattle. The Lord blessed him with all of this stuff because he was blameless. And not only that, something else I want to point out tonight. Let's look at verse 5. Verse 5 tells us that and when the feast days had run their course, Job would sin and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them. All for Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This is what Job always did. Job got up early every morning to make a sacrifice for his kids. He didn't have to do it, but he did because he didn't want it to go unnoticed to the Lord that his kids may have sinned with their heart. So he wanted to make sure he made an atonement for them. During times like this, I wonder sometimes how many parents really, when they get up in the mornings or before they go to bed or throughout the day, really have a talk with the Lord and ask the Lord to forgive the sins of their children. Lord, bless our children. And most times we don't do it until our children get in trouble. Then we want to go to the Lord. But Job was so upright and he feared the Lord so much that he wanted to make sure that his kids were safe. He got up every morning, not for himself, but for his kids. We have a lot of parents nowadays would not want to do nothing for their kids, would not want to be in their kids' life. I was looking at a movie last night about Elton John, his biopic, and it's amazing to me how his mother and father treated him. Growing up, they didn't like him. They didn't like each other, so they took it out on him. To the point when he got older, his mom came and asked him for money, and he started talking to her. And this is a man that was worth probably about $100 million during that time. And his mom told him that she was embarrassed that he was her son. And this man is a a pop star. And it made me wonder right then and there, and after reading this, do we fail our kids because we don't pray for them enough? Do we fail our kids because we don't tell them we love them enough? Do we fail our kids because we don't just sit down and have conversations with them? Job in this instance was not having conversations with them, but he raised them to the point to where, for one, if you notice, if you go back a verse before that they had festivals and they invited the whole family. You know, we have families right now that don't even get along. We have families right now that don't want their siblings in the house with them. We have families right now that mama don't speak to daughter don't speak to daddy don't speak to son, and sometimes they are living in the same house and still won't do it. Job, because he was blameless and upright, he taught his children, but not only did he teach his children, he prayed and made sacrifices for his children. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out tonight in the first 5 verses. That, yes, it talked about how rich Job was, how his outer appearance was, but it also in that told you that he was blameless and upright. Now, we know that we all fall short. In Jesus' eyesight, we're just filthy rags. We sin on a daily basis. But we should try our best on a daily basis to strive to do better than we did the day before. We should try to help someone if we didn't help them the day before. If we fell short, and said a few choice words on Monday, we should pray and ask the Lord to forgive us, and also try our best to hold our tongue on Tuesday. If we saw some folks that during this time that we just cringe when we see them and don't want to have a conversation with them, don't want to listen to them, we should try to make that effort the next time we see them to hear them out. That's what it means to grow in Christ. So when we hear Job being blameless and upright, yes, we're not blameless, but can't we be upright? Shouldn't we be able to be upright, not only in the eyesight of God, but upright in our community, upright in our neighborhoods, upright in the eyes of the law? When we look at these protests that are going on right now, you have the protests and you have the riots and all the violence and all of that. There are some upright citizens that is out there trying to protest, that is trying to do what they feel the Lord is telling them to do and speaking out against the injustices. But then you have them other ones that is just out there doing what they want to do, trying to cause chaos. And you'll see why I picked this verse in a minute. So hold that thought. We got some upright citizens out there trying to do right, and they're protesting. They're exercising their First Amendment right.